And David at the end there really helped lead into the next speaker tonight, because Minna has been instrumental in helping the scene here in Vancouver evolve when it comes to the access to medical cannabis, and has founded a dispensary, the Karuna Medicinals. And David touched upon a provincial campaign to have dispensaries licensed and run provincially, which is allowed under the new regulations. And Minna and many of us are hoping that that will be possible. And so she's here today to explain to you how dispensaries work and what she does and other things. And very happy to have her here. So come on up. Thanks.
First of all, I'd say thank you for coming here, and to all our relations to be able to use this land so we could be here to gather some tools for change to start an evolution. So my name is Minna, and I started the Karuna Medicinal Society in Vancouver 2 years ago. It has been quite a journey, and I now help about 700 people in medical cannabis. And what led me to this journey was just finding a lot of different teachers throughout my life. I started with as a quantum healing therapist, using my hands, my breath, my intention to produce change, and with the attention of love, to provide light and information to make miracles happen, essentially. I also went to university and studied tourism recreation management, and focused on holistic healing retreat centers, and it allowed me to really get into the practitioners and the different alternative modalities that are available. And my last year of university, I actually studied horticulture, and that led me to horticulture therapy, which at that time there was only 3 horticulture therapists in Canada. And I was able to volunteer in the General Regional Hospital in the psychiatric ward, and was able to see things from like a woman who was highly medicated. She was able to regain a sense of self by even just touching the soil and having the microbes and turning her into a happier state. Or somebody who was really angry and he threatened to kill the nurse next to me, and I actually sat him down and asked him to transplant some little seedlings and stuff that were sprouted, and saw a big change from his aggressiveness to I showed him like how you could nicely treat the plant and the different results you would get, and he started doing it in a different manner and a lot of caring. So from my formal education, it really taught me how to research effectively, manage my time, and critically think. So outside of the institution, I guess I was able to find a lot of different research on how people can optimize their health, because the healthcare industry was failing me and the people around me, because my family was dying. Like, everybody had cancer in my family history, and I was really motivated to not get it myself. So what I did was, first, when I created Karuna, the word Karuna itself is a Sanskrit seed syllable, meaning the wish of all sentient beings to be released of suffering. Taking like Albert Einstein's E equals mc squared, it's kind of like taking energy with equals matter times light squared. But if you replace energy with word wellness, and matter with illness, and light squared being the body, you can then realize that your matter and consciousness are interrelated, and they affect each other continuously, and they're integrated and not separate. And so the light body is actually been measured by Dr. Vladimir Poponin. He was a Russian quantum biologist in the Institute of Biochemical Physics in the Russian Academy of Sciences. And he discovered something called the DNA phantom effect, which shows that human DNA has a field around it. It's very real and measurable, and it's so potent that it can cause nature to shift into a mathematical symmetry, and it's interdimensional. So like the superstring theory will support this multidimensional idea. And so life is in quantum states, and everything is interdimensionally connected. And at this point, I just wanted to see from show of hands if anybody's a skeptic of that idea. Okay, so from those two people keeping your hands up, who do you feel like you have a broad range of emotional states that you are good at controlling?
Sure.
Would either you want to volunteer for a little demonstration?
Sure.
Okay, hold on.
Oops.
What's your name?
I'm George.
Hi, George. Thanks.
Right.
So all I'm really going to do right now is to stand there and just be neutral.
All right.
And I'm going to use these dowsing rods. Usually they're used to find water. But when I hold them parallel and I put them to his aura, they'll cross when I hit his aura. So if you just be neutral and I'll just walk closer to you. That's that. So. That's right here. So now I'm going to go back here and just let me know when you're ready, but think about the happiest thing you can think of, either in your life or anything that can happen to somebody.
All right.
So you have that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a bit bigger of a field around you now. And I'm going to go back now. And just let me know when you have a thought of the saddest thing that you can think of right now.
All right. All right.
Okay. So it's right beside you. So it's a lot smaller when you think of something sad, and your energy is it decreases. So now I want everybody to participate and send him some love and see the difference from that.
George.
And I'm not moving these. So our thoughts really connect each other, right? Thank you.
Thank you.
So every person has 15 frequency bands, and their body, within our body, and it correlates with different chakras. The DNA strand, as well as other aspects that make up our bioenergetic field. So with this demonstration, I want to describe and bridge the gap between in order to understand, fuse, and integrate this idea of two attributes, that life energy and consciousness are the same. So life energy being described as the aura, like the gradations of the atmosphere, and life and energy being the life force emanating from consciousness. Kind of like observing the energetic field emanating from a body. It's not unlike observing steam coming off of a boiling pot of water. And if you correctly observe it, you have an idea of what water's nature is like. Dr. Emoto, I'm not sure if you are familiar with his theories of crystalline structures in water in relation to music and thoughts. He had an experiment when he took 3 beakers of rice, over a period of a month, and every day he went and had a certain thought to each one. One he said thank you to, another one he said you're an idiot, and the other one he totally ignored. The one he said thank you to started fermenting, and it was clear colored and it was pleasant smelling. The one he said you're an idiot to turned black, and the one he ignored started molding. Which kind of correlates with a researcher in 1966. He was actually America's foremost lie detector examiner. His name was Cleve Baxter, and he discovered that plants have a form of ESP. He took a piece of the lie detector and bridged it with something called the Wheatstone bridge, where he was able to discover that plants could differentiate between intent and pretend. So he had the leaf hooked up to the machine, and he went and thought that different emotions were affecting the plant. And drinking water acted differently, whereas when it was in a state of drought. then he said, oh, well, maybe I could threaten the plant in some way. So even the idea that he was going to take a match to it and burn it, the plant responded off on the ECG, or the graph, where it was getting emotionally sensitive to it. Whereas he went and took the match and pretended to burn it, it didn't really respond. He did another experiment where he went 80 miles away and had that plant hooked up and, in a sense, kind of befriended the plant, so energetically connected to it. So he went away in a remote area, thought about the plant, and did several things. One was burning something, breaking an egg, and thinking about his wife sexually, which went off the charts in the lab. So plants can read your mind, even from a distance. So people can also have that kind of sense, but we've kind of taught ourselves to forget that. This is not something that has been discovered by him. He's just kind of uncovered it because we knew about it, but then forgot about it again. Just like in 1879, Louis Pasteur, he kind of gave a realization to people in hospitals that their germs exist, because they had no idea that why babies were getting fevers and dying, until he started insisting that doctors would wash their hands between autopsies and taking care of babies. And from that, the baby's fever after birth decreased dramatically, and later on, from germs, I mean, the greatest death toll in history was in 1918 in Spain, when there was a influenza that spread. So 50 million people in that history died from the greatest toll from germs. But in the 20th century alone, right now, the difference between that is that we're combating a death rate of 20 million people. That is just from violence, which equates to 1.6 million people dying a year from violence. The statistics from that is only 20% is from war and genocide, 30% is from a family member or a friend, and 50% is either from self-harm or suicide. So our greatest enemy right now is not germs, but ourselves and our state of mind. So a lot of times that people are attached to storytelling of their wounds. A lot of people, that's the first thing you share, is to create a relationship, is how you're feeling. Because you gain anxiety, stress, and you focus more on why you're sick. Whereas if you just imagine yourself into a state of healthy wholeness, that's a lot different, and you do accelerate your time of healing. Because a lot of the times people have the attachment to an outcome, and when you have more of like a symbolic feeling of healing, then you realize that you don't have to, healing is not time specific, and that's an illusion, so it has no power on the healing process. And from that, you give off a certain vibration. So plants, when they're stressed, they also give off a high-pitched vibration that attracts bugs to them to decompose them. An example for the lima bean, if they experience mites, they actually send out another transmission to attract another set of mites to attack the mites that are detrimenting them. Whereas in cannabis, if the soil is not amended and you're just feeding it hydroponics and thinking that the macronutrients are enough to support the plant, it's also going to get stressed and attract all these different pests. So when you spray things for pests, it's not it's acting as a band-aid, whereas if you amended the soil and gave it this nourishment, it wouldn't feel stressed, so you wouldn't have to spray. And a lot of the sprays are derived from war. They disrupt your nervous system and reproductive system, and they have no idea what happens when you cook them and they melt together, and there's not enough tests done for that. So nourishing yourself with food from the farmer's market is the best to avoid a state of disease, because your body is not going to be attracting disease. if you have the highest form of nutrients. When you go from the grocery store to the health food store to the farmer's market, things from the stores are been sprayed with growth retardants, and whereas the farmer's markets are live and the enzymes are there and they haven't traveled a long time, so it hasn't depreciated in its nutrient value. A lot of times we're into so much convenience foods, the preservatives and stuff. Like in America alone, on average, people eat 20 pounds of preservatives a year in dry weight. Whereas 1.8 million species on this earth eats a raw diet, and only 1 eats a cooked diet. It's not like a lot of people are attached to their diets. A lot of cultures are defined that way, so it's harder to let go if you especially want to rejuvenate. But it's the only way, and because it has a lot of enzymes and minerals that are attached to it. And someone like David Wolf makes it really exciting. He focuses more on superfoods. So essentially, if you're going to eat something and you only have a certain amount of time to fuel yourself, might as well eat it with the highest nutrient compact food. Because all that is living supports life, basically. And Dr. Terry Wallace discovered that you can cure diseases such as MS by eating accordingly to your energy-giving cells, like your mitochondria, which is a really easy diet. It's 3 cups of dark greens, leafy greens, 3 cups of sulfur-rich foods, 3 cups of antioxidant-rich foods, and organ meats such as like heart, tongue, and gizzards, to ensure that you have enough vitamin B's and minerals such as sulfur, magnesium, and iodine, and essential fats through your food. So through greens, grass-fed meats, game, wild fish, flax, and walnuts. These foods, and also to reduce your food allergies, also cut out gluten, sugar, and dairy. You notice in 30 days that you have a very different feel to life energetically. And a lot of emotional things are a mineral or nutrient deficiency. So like if you have irritabilities, then you might have a lack of GABA in your system, which is glutamate decreases the GABA, and that is found in things like NutraSweet, aspartame, and MSG. So a lot of that times you'll be fueling your nerve cells, and the neurotransmitters get the amino acids through your blood, so from your diet. Your blood's hemoglobin and the plant's chloroplasts. The only difference is the nucleus in blood has iron, and then plants has magnesium. So when you're juicing, it's essentially drinking the lifeblood of the plants to fuel yourself. And to determine whether or not a plant is the most medicinal, you can generally see, like, if it's a vigorous plant and it's dark leaf in its leaf, then it has a lot of medicinal value. So cannabis is probably one of the greatest ones that we can have, because it does have the compounds for our brains and nervous system. So juicing it, you can have 60 times as much than if you were to heat it, and the body, it regulates the body's system and supports all 210 cell types. It is best in its form raw in a juice for preventative maintenance, like diabetes and cancer and such. It's really good anti-inflammatory, and it has bone remodeling capabilities. There's a case study where a woman had cancer, lupus, and she was supposed to she was supposed to be sterile, and she was resistant to a lot of antibiotics. And juicing cannabis leaf with other fruits and vegetables, she was able to let go of all her ailments in 6 weeks, and she was able to see her 30th birthday and give birth to a child. So in the cannabis leaf, it's really high concentrated CBD, which is the second most abundant cannabinoid. This treats rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, nausea, and bowel disorders. It's also a neuroprotective, and with neurological disorders, something like MS could indicate that you don't have enough anatomy in your system, which if you treat it with THC, it has a similar bind to the same receptors. So it essentially is providing you with a substitute that is similar to what your body would use. But a lot of times, substitutes are not enough, and your body ends up with something like cancer when you're using something that's you're not really supposed to have. Synthetic things like eating or taking supplements is not as effective as eating whole foods that contain these minerals. And so when people extract synthetic THC, like Medicinal, it's very ineffective because one dose is 20 to 45 milligrams and it only lasts about 1 to 1.5 hours, and it costs about $35 a day. Whereas 2 to 8 milligrams of THC lasts about 3 hours, and about $15 can last somebody about a week if you're really careful about how much you use. So CBD has a non-psychoactive properties, but it can be sedative and it has pain relieving properties. From some of the things that David said about Phoenix tears, it definitely has some anti-angiogenesis properties. What herb herbalists discovered is a very different way of extracting the same kind of molecules from cannabis, but without using a solvent. So he used water to take the CBD and THC into a tea, and then he reduced it and made a resin. That was given to Tommy Chong when he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and he was able to eat that about a gram a day within 60 days, and he went into full remission. He taught me how to make it, and I actually added a few upgrades to it. Integrated the quantum healing touch, some ancient Sanskrit mantras, a diamond water, which is spring water that has a higher vibrational rate and accelerates allows access to a higher life and intelligence to integrate and mingle with and respond to the intentions of the medicine. And from that, it actually accelerated somebody's healing process. I started with a person who, there were 3 case studies I want to talk about first, because I've helped about a dozen people who were in terminal stage and doctors were giving up on them. The first one being someone who was detoxing off of methadone. When I first saw him, he was nauseous, he was trembling, he had like no facial structure really. He was like very, very blue almost, and he just standing in front of me, he was always trying to keep his vomit down. Like he couldn't stay for very long. And I gave him the water resin, and he was detoxing for about 3 months right now at that point. And when you detox with methadone, there's actually a detox period of 3 months, and then after effects for about 6 months. So he was about to enter the first 3 months of detox, and from eating the water resin for 1 gram a week, it was like he didn't have the withdrawal symptoms. He was able to have his appetite back, the nausea went away, and he kept improving until 4 weeks after he was able to not be on methadone anymore. And in the methadone clinic where he saw his doctor, they actually asked him not to talk about it in the waiting room because he actually was able to detox 5 times faster than anyone else. So that would take a lot of money away from the pharmaceutical companies that are actually providing it. Another person was also taught by Herb to make it. Her brother was dying of liver cancer. It was like terminal stage, and the doctors actually gave up on him. They sent him home with a high amount of pneumonia and said, just work on your transition in life because there's no more help for you. So she went and visited him, brought the resin, and he didn't change anything else in his life. Still smoked cigarettes, still had a bad diet, but he ate the resin. And within 4 weeks, he went back and his doctor said he actually qualified for a liver transplant. 4 weeks after that, still taking the resin, he didn't need a transplant anymore, which is quite revolutionary. Another woman I've been helping for over a year who started with Phoenix tears. She has a really rare tumor all over her body, from her face, underneath her skin. The only part that's really protruding is on her shoulder, and it's all down her body and her sweat glands as well. It's called apocrine sparadenoma, and she's had it for 13 years. 2 surgeries failed her, one with laser, one with a knife. And after her surgeries, it actually grew stronger. So we applied the Phoenix tears, and the day after, she came back and she was like, what did you do? Like, what is in this? This is a miracle. I actually don't feel pain from it anymore. And this is the first time I've ever felt anything amazing and healing from this application. So it was actually really expensive for her, and so she found that maybe experimenting with the water resin was a better route. And she started eating that and applying it topically onto her tumor, and it started shrinking. And there's black bits, and they went away, and what she called Cis Mountain became the Cis Foothills, and now it's the beach. And within like a year, I started making the preparation for her myself, and because she couldn't afford even food, I was sponsoring her medicine. And at one point, when I was making it, I made a mistake. I burnt it, and I integrated more tea to it and boiled it down again and made it into a paste, and offered it to her anyways. And we wanted to experiment. And she was really excited because the accident actually made it more healing. And it drew out the tumor, and even more, where it became little pimples started coming out around the edges, and the pimples got really big. And they filled with pus, they popped and blistered over, and now new skin grew over it, and now they're completely flat. And it went from something this big, and now it's this small. And it used to be really lumpy, and now it's really smooth. And she's in her final stages of healing, which is really exciting. So basically from this, it's quite, it's not that great that we have prohibition working against us and she can't access this medicine herself. She can't find a doctor that will even sign her MMAR to make her federally exempt to use cannabis. So with the dispensary, this is a model where we can give safe access to and fast results without having to wait for a patient to get their license, grow their medicine to the final product, dry it, and then finally use it. So the MMPR, which is actually taking people's rights away from being to grow their own medicine and provide that themselves. It's going to bring that, it's going to bring the licensing to a halt. It's only going to be available to commercial growers, which is very detrimental to the patients who have specific strains to their ailment. A lot of strains will be lost that have been not researched enough for people's specific ailments, because every plant has a purpose. Nothing is a weed unless we don't know what its function is. So from a plant's point of view, cannabis made itself really desirable, so we could save it. It's manipulated us to the point where we've gone underground to protect it, in a sense. And we still don't know its potential, really. And from being able to produce your own medicine and to take it away from from the patient is not providing better patient care at all, in my opinion. And if politicians are out there to provide, tell us what we're really allowed to do, that's what's good for us or not, I think we also have the same intelligence, if not a greater intelligence than a politician, to decide whether or not what is good for us. And I think Dr. Albert Schweitzer said it very well, where he says that we doctors, we're supposed to keep a secret, and we're not supposed to, but I'll tell you anyways. We don't do anything at all. We only help and encourage the doctor within himself. And I hope that inspires you today to take on massive action to find out what's will bring health back to your life.
Are there any questions here for Minna before she steps down?
I remember when we came for a tour, you talked a lot about the ratios to CBN and CBD and how that would affect, the medicinal benefits. And I was just wondering if you could explain that a little more, because I didn't understand it at the time.
I'm not really sure about how CBN really affects anything. I'm not the expert of that.
Okay.
I'm not sure what you're really referring to when I explain that.
I believe CBN is more say product.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No.
I might try to answer a little bit myself. Each of the different 70 cannabinoids have different medical effects. If I understand your question correctly, maybe where I start, you're asking, maybe you could just repeat it for me.
Yeah, from what I recall from the tour you gave us of your dispensary, there was labeling on the different products you had of the ratios of these different cannabinoids in them, and I was wondering if that had relevance to how you were treating people. If someone has anxiety versus they can't fall asleep, do those ratios play into that at all?
More so with THC and CBD. CBD has a really good anti-inflammatory effect and can be sedative, but not as much as if activated THC.
It mitigates the effects of THC as well.
CBD does, yes.
Yeah.
The two do work together in certain ways synergistically. Strains that have got high THC content and low CBD content can create anxiety in people. And
so would that be a sativa?
yes.
That's right.
Sounds like, okay.
Yeah. We commonly know them as sativas because that's what gives people this really strong kind of headstone without the sort of couch potato effect. And so that has been what the market has been working towards. Right now there's a push in the other direction towards CBD dominant strains that have got little THC. We refer to them generally as indica if they have more CBD. But now there's this push towards low THC, high CBD, which is almost a completely separate category. It's not even indica, it's something quite new that we haven't even come up with a term for yet. And so the medicines that are high CBD, low THC, we actually have one in our store now called Nordal that we sell. There's another strain known as Canatonic that's quite popular. Other ones that are coming out now. Very little psychoactive effect. So like our members that smoke it don't want to feel any kind of a headstone at all. But the CBD is a great anti-inflammatory and great painkiller and has a lot of wonderful benefits. The indica kind of have both of the sativa and the indica, which works for certain symptoms. But to even say symptoms sometimes isn't accurate because people's pain shifts throughout the day, throughout the week. It's not constant, and people will, even with the same symptoms, choose different medicines for the morning than they will in the evening. So it's something that you know, it is variable even day to day. You know, where people wake up one day and they're more sore than they were the last. So sometimes they need an indica to get out of bed. Sometimes they have an indica, they're going right back to bed.
Well, one of the analogies I like to give, because to people who don't understand it, not for this audience, but if you want to explain it to somebody who doesn't understand it, it's something I've had to learn, is I always do a comparison with the wine model. So if you talk about wine, if you're somebody who's never drunk red wine says to you, if I have a glass of red wine a day, could it be beneficial for my health? We say, yeah, sure, a glass. Don't drink 6 bottles of it, but a glass is okay. If their next question is, which red wine will I like? That's tougher to answer. You know, you might like a Cabernet Sauvignon, you might like something else. And then, as Ted says, what time of day? Somebody tastes it and says, I don't like that. Normally I like a Cabernet Sauvignon. You say, it's breakfast time. Did you just brush your teeth? You know, it doesn't make it taste great, and it tastes different. And then even if they decide on the strain they like, if you want to call it strain or grape variety, it varies from vineyard to vineyard. It varies from country to country. It depends how it's grown, the viticulture, and even from year to year it varies. The vintages are different. So this is a natural plant produce. It's one of the reasons why with this the company I'm talking about, we're going to tissue culture strains, so they will be identical. It's not genetically modified, but they are identical, which is pretty much the way the horticultural industry has measured. So you do get a standard product, because that's one of the things that turns doctors off, is when you say, we've got this great medicine and it's really good for pain, and then they say, oh, what's it called? And you say, it's called Bubba Kush, or it's called Super Whammo or something. It's not as good. They're used to something that sounds like I don't know, Ted Smithazam or something, you know, or something like that. They're more used to that. So there needs to be some marketing to make it sound more medical, I would suggest, but also it needs to be standardized.
I'm really intrigued about this whole thing about like standardization and just the quality of medicines. You were saying, actually, David, you're saying too about like the light and whatnot. I was curious whether the underground aspect actually affects the quality of the medicine, whether like a grower who's in more fear might produce. Because I've tried BC bud that made me feel anxiety, and it wasn't. Back in high school.
Well, it's the environment it's grown in, certainly.
Probably getting from criminal activities, and yeah, I was wondering whether the patients can like discern that, because I don't know. I always assumed it was purely physical and not you just supply the plant with all the physical. What your perspective is that your consciousness, like the boundary, is not so distinct as we think, and is there a certain aspect of the underground, like in a basement versus somewhere in a greenhouse, like interior BC, people are in less. They don't worry about as much about. Because I don't know
if it's interior or exterior. I think it's all about the mentality of people, and it's been one of the great benefits of this licensing system that people have taken advantage of, because with the license on the wall, people's fear factor is gone, and they've been able to just think about the medicine and put it in.
There's also that aspect of requiring the closed circuit security cameras for some certain designated growers, and I was just wondering whether that kind of.
That's for the new system.
Putting everything in locks.
Yeah, that's the new proposed system. That's not the current.
Right, that's not the one we're advocating. It's the designated growers. Like, I know if you want to provide medicine, like, and through the government system, you have to rig you can't do it outdoors, basically.
No, and you know what, Phil? There's a lot of answers that I've got to give you. Maybe if you can stick around to 4:20 and we can chat. I don't mean to be rude, but Chris has got his demonstration here, and it's an incredible one. I saw it 2 weeks ago, and I don't want to cut it more short than I have to. So if you can stick around after, there is a lot of important things to discuss. I know we're not touching on them all. But I'd just like to again thanks Minna for coming here today and doing such an awesome I understand Minna is now passing the Karuna on, right?
Yeah, so I'm taking some time to do my own healing. I've spent 2 years helping a lot, and so I feel like it's my time to just step back and let someone else passionate about it take it over.
Cool. So thank you so much for all your help, and thanks for having the club at UBC. I didn't mention that, but thanks for letting me visit. So thanks again. Pleasure.